All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be talking about Varanus's Resurgence, a campaign made in 2001. And it's Zerg-centered, of course, and sometimes has Protoss, like in I believe it was the... Oh, no, I'm thinking of Reclamation of Fire, aren't I? Oh, no, Crossing the Rubicon, the second map, had you rescue a probe. So there's a lot of really silly things about this campaign. Not really much to say on it because there's nothing super substantive about it. Nothing really stands out about it besides the fact that it's so silly and, in some cases, very blatantly untested. In a sense that if you did actually test this, and there are testers credited, you would think that you would know that there's something wrong here, right? Like the fundamental paradigm by which there is gameplay in this particular production is that the player has to go out and attack and then crack the space with just insane amounts of armies. And obviously the AI is really good at multitasking when it's defending and casting spells and stuff. And so it's just a chore to break through most of the time. Meanwhile, they never actually pose a threat to you. They'll never attack you. They'll never be aggressive. After a certain point, they always break, probably because of some improper setup. And that means that you basically have no chance of actually, making things work with this AI, making it so that the AI is actually going to be the aggressor, going to try to win the game, just like you're trying to win the game, right? AI is just an obstacle for you to overcome as opposed to a true opponent to triumph over and to prevent their victory over you. And so there's never any real connection to them. That being said, at the same time, I think it was the third mission, Natural Selection, where you actually destroy the leaders of the factions that you then go on to fight for, I think, the next two missions, if I'm not mistaken. And, sure, the Zerg Phalanx shows up in the fourth map, but I guess it was just there was still a heavy presence of the Dominion Conclave Alliance in the fourth map, but you've just annihilated their leaders, and there was not even any dialogue and stuff. So, like the story that's being told by the narrative, the dialogue, if you want to call it characterization, you can, but that would be pretty generous. Just any of that is like completely lost in the cacophony of this overall production, because you get into a position where you actually don't have any characterization of the setting. It's supposed to be 100 years into the future, and yet there's literally nothing new besides some heroes, which actually, most of which get evolved in the middle of the campaign. So it's like, for example, you collect the essence of a Dark Templar by 1v1ing him with a Mutalisk that's also a detector and shoots an Archon ball. And so that's just embarrassing right off the bat, right? And then he turns into a cloaked Ultralisk, but you've already spoiled the surprise of the cloaked Ultralisk by having a cloaked Ultralisk boss battle in the fifth mission. It's just so silly. I don't know, man. It's just, I can't stand campaigns that think that they're doing something epic, and Varanus definitely thought he was doing something epic with this, yet they completely fail to take anything about what they're doing seriously and to hold any element of game design or level design or AI or whatever. Like there's no effort put into any of that, right? There's no effort to characterize the setting better and the characters within it better through gameplay. It's really just like, everybody's, I don't know. It's very much like a 12-year-old's kind of story, except for whatever puzzling reason it has voice acting. Usually pretty bad, pitch shifted, over edited, sometimes just like fundamentally flawed, like recorded with a lot of pops and background noise and stuff, voice acting. But it's voice acting nonetheless. And I'm glad that I didn't have to read some of this dialogue, man, because it was really bad. So I don't know. It just nothing about Resurgence felt like a serious production, even though you could tell it was trying to be a serious production. It was just ended up being like a self-parody unintentionally, and you never want that as a campaign designer. It would be an intentional self-parody, not an unintentional one, if that's what you wanted. Of course, if that's being what you intended. But I think that I really want to labor the point of the fact that most of this campaign was macro does not excuse the fact that, for one, it had micro missions to begin with, but for another, the macro missions are just horrible. It's just, again, slogging through this endlessly, efficient defense machine of infinite money AI and not being able to actually do anything with them. Besides, like, you have to be the source of all of the engagement, right? And that's not how you want to do things, because then it's on the player to lose by suiciding their hero accidentally, as opposed to losing by, a conventional RTS defeat, which would be, being outmaneuvered by your opponent, having less resources, not enough resources to attack them with. There's only like a handful of times where that was even remotely possible in this production, and it was all because of really silly shit that ended up killing me. Eventually was the heroes. It was always the heroes dying. And so hero design is completely pointless. Like, then nothing about it is really that interesting. They all are detectors, and it just feels like it's like, there's these boxes, right? Shields and detection. These are boxes I can tick and dat edit. I bet I can do that and then make it so that it's that'll be like, make it so that it's cool, but it's not. It's like, if everything's a detector, then what the fuck is the point of even bringing overlords? And then you have medics that blind your heroes permanently, which is just psychotic. So the hero design does not reinforce an idea that you can actually do stuff in the early game or just at all with micro skill. It's really just like, is this base unit good? If not, then the hero is worthless. If it is, then maybe the hero is fucking broken. And you could see this with like the Zealot hero, for example, in 9B, where it was completely pointless to use. So, just very silly altogether. I also thought that Varanus literally self-inserting him into his own anus was just insane, where he actually has lines in both 9A and in Mission 10, depending on which ending you get. And I thought that the branching ending was really confusing, because there doesn't seem to be a reason to make Zarek an optional objective. It's just like, there's like, maybe somebody pitched him like, wouldn't it be so epic, Varanus, if you could make it so that there's like a mission that's like a what if scenario, where what if Zarek died? And he's like, wow, I'll put that in the game. Again, it's like very like 12-year-old mentality almost, where that probably sounds a lot more brutal than I'm meaning it to sound. It's just like, this is stuff what young people do. They have these ideas, they're not very fleshed out or well-rounded, and maybe there's some grain of competence to them, or potential to them, but it's never going to be realized by their shitty execution, because they're just not established individuals in the space, so they don't actually know how best to handle this stuff, and it's still going to be a long time before they do, and they need to keep working at their craft. But as far as I understand, there's this is the only other Varanus campaign, the latest Varanus campaign, I guess. I can do a quick search here, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this is it. Or Google Drive can just be a piece of shit. Yep, so there's 3 Varanus campaigns. The first one was the Alliance, which was in October of 1998, which we have not played. But then there was Palinchron Concordance in May of 99, and then Resurgence in November of 2001. So maybe we'll go back and see if there's really any difference, but you're supposed to get better with time, not worse. So I would imagine that maybe we're going to be in for a real shock if we end up playing that campaign at any point. But I don't think it had voice acting. I'm pretty sure Palinchron Concordance and Resurgence were the only Varanus campaigns with voice acting. So there you go. That's Varanus' Resurgence. I mean, I don't really recommend it to anybody. I feel like if you wanted to learn anything from it, you could probably just look at click around in the videos, skipping around the boring parts, and take a look at just how it feels to move into a group of units and try to micro well and try to do a decent enough job with your engagements, and still be falling short because the AI has infinite money, even though you've potentially starved them of resources perhaps. And you actually have to play the game in a very inefficient way, inefficient for what is considered a basic kind of way to win, right? Like, if you think about how you normally win, it's by starving the enemy of resources, or that could be one victory condition, and taking expansions and defending them. That would be another. But it all comes down to like making better moves tactically than your opponents. But if you're removing resources from the equation, then that's a huge part of the component, a huge component of the overall piece of the puzzle that really does not it does not lend to enjoyable experiences on the other end, because you're going to be sitting here, fighting against an AI that doesn't need to mine resources. Some cases, like 9B, still will mine resources, and generally will just not actually attack you. So you're taking out the attacking part, so you no longer have to defend, really. After the first 20 minutes, you don't have to defend. So you set up a couple of defenses or whatever, but it's not really much. and you have mostly like a mobile army because whatever force does end up making it to you is probably not that consequential. And then you have a situation where the AI is obviously doesn't give a shit if they expand or not because they'll always have money, and so that's a big problem, I would say. So you've got the fact that the AI doesn't engage with you, and the fact that you can't engage with the AI to negate some of their their resource stockpile, right? Their advantages. They have these advantages that are inalienable, that are not possible to be negated in any way through like intelligent map play. And that is a big problem because you're taking out a pretty big way of the player to be able to express their skill, right? You're removing that tool from the toolbox, just saying no, it's off limits. It's exactly the same as StarCraft 2, which just outright said don't target enemy bases, and if you did, it was just a waste of your time and money. And I guess it's not exactly the same because you actually did have to destroy the bases in this case, but it was the same sort of mindset, I think, that led to that sort of thing. So I would definitely encourage people to stay away if they need like a reminder of what really bad macro can look like because you put no effort into the AI scripting and just fucked around with insane AIs. Then maybe this is a campaign that can be useful for that, to like make sure you ward off you ever using insane AIs ever again. That can be something that you can use this for, but I wouldn't touch it. I personally would stay far the fuck away from this. So that's basically all I have to say at this juncture. I hope that you guys have enjoyed the playthrough despite how boring and slow some of the missions undoubtedly were. And I don't know when the next campaign playthrough is going to be, but if you have a suggestion, let me know when. And I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.